It was just another morning until I saw the red envelope taped to my door. No wind, no sound, just that bold lettering staring back at me like a warning shot. HOA versus resident, court summons. No name, just accusation. No warning, just war. I stood there in my driveway, still in my running shoes, heart beginning to thump against my ribs. The neighborhood I helped build, now sending legal threats to my front porch. Not a call, not a conversation, just this. Inside, I flipped through the pages. Noise violations, unapproved exterior changes, misuse of community resources, lies stacked on lies. My hands were steady. My eyes weren't. Because the signature at the bottom was Gloria Hunt, the same woman who cried at my kitchen table 2 years ago, after her husband passed, while I drafted her a will pro bono. I opened my blinds. Across the street, 3 neighbors stood silent. They saw the envelope. One of them, Mrs. Dalka, turned away and shut her door. No one waved. No one asked. I was already guilty in their eyes. I logged into the HOA portal. Access denied. My security badge didn't work at the gym. The gate code expired. By noon, an anonymous email arrived. You've been flagged as a hostile resident. No reply, no name. Just that. By evening, new rules were voted on. No more personal gatherings over 4 people. No driveway parking. No external lights after 9 p.m. Every rule designed to target me, but written vague enough to hit anyone. The next morning, my mailbox was pried open. A warning from code enforcement. Someone had filed a formal complaint about chemical storage in my garage. I don't own chemicals. I own a toolbox. That toolbox now made me a target. I took a walk just to breathe. At the cul-de-sac, a new lawn sign waited on my property, not above the law. It wasn't there yesterday. Show issued. Staked into my grass like a declaration of war. Nobody took credit. Everyone saw it. The HOA president hadn't just filed a complaint. She had drawn battle lines. That night, I sat in my kitchen, watching my own security feed. A motion alert blinked. A board member, Jackson Rivera, standing on my lawn, measuring something with a tape. He wasn't even trying to hide it. I called the HOA office. Straight to voicemail. I emailed. No reply. I contacted 3 neighbors. One responded, I can't get involved. Please don't text again. Then the alert came in. My HOA account, frozen. Auto payments halted. Fees climbing. And worse, a lien had been filed against my property. They weren't just making noise. They were tightening the rope. I stared at the court date again. 12 days. And they still didn't know who I really was. By the second day, the neighborhood felt colder. Not in temperature, something else. Doors that used to stay open now closed when I walked by. The Thompson kids crossed the street to avoid passing my driveway. I wasn't a neighbor anymore. I was a threat, and they made sure I knew it. Someone placed a printed flyer on every mailbox. Violator among us. Protect our community. No name, but a photo cropped just enough to be legal. It was me. From behind. Walking my dog. Blurry, but unmistakable. That morning, my dog didn't want to leave the porch. A neighbor I once helped during a roof leak drove past me without a wave. Her husband used to borrow my ladder. Now he installed security cameras aimed at my property. The HOA didn't just file a complaint, they rewrote my identity. Painted me as a rogue, a risk, someone who didn't care about rules or respect. And the worst part, people believed them. I checked the HOA portal again. Still locked out. New post, emergency vote on disciplinary measures. I wasn't invited. I wasn't even listed. But the motion passed. They had stripped me of voting rights, committee access, and community representation. I wasn't part of this neighborhood anymore. I was its enemy. Then came the text from Dana, the only neighbor who hadn't turned. She was a nurse. Quiet. Kept to herself. She wrote, they asked me to sign a complaint against you. I refused. Now they've scheduled a review of my lease agreement. The retaliation wasn't limited to me. They were going after anyone who didn't play along. Later that night, a knock. Hard, fast. I opened the door to find a man in a blazer holding a manila envelope. No greeting. Just handed it to me and walked off. Inside was a letter from the HOA's legal representative, addressed to defendant, not my name, not Mr. Just that cold, clinical word, defendant. Their attorney, Gregory Langston, a man known for small-town muscle tactics. I remembered him. Years ago, I debated him at a county zoning meeting. He lost. Badly. He never forgot. The letter outlined proposed fines, retroactive penalties, and an official request for a court-supervised property audit. I laughed, quiet bitter. They were building a noose out of paperwork. But they made a mistake. They assumed I was still the man who left the HOA quietly. They assumed I had no power, no strategy, no reach. They thought I was cornered. They never asked why I left the board in the first place. They never asked what I've been doing since. Because the truth is, I never stopped practicing law. I just stopped doing it publicly. I work under contract now. Federal cases, infrastructure corruption, housing fraud, and yes, homeowner abuse. I walked into my study, opened the safe behind a cabinet, and pulled out the sealed envelope I hadn't touched in years. Inside, my active license, my credentials, my federal badge. They filed their case against a man they thought was vulnerable. But I'm not just another resident. I'm the man they'll wish they never tried to destroy. I spent the next 48 hours building a case, not just to defend myself, but to dismantle theirs. Every document they submitted, every fine they fabricated, every blurry photo, they left fingerprints. Digital ones. Dates didn't match timestamps. Metadata told a different story. They were sloppy. The so-called noise complaints, logged during hours I was at work. I pulled traffic cam footage, credit card receipts, timestamps from my garage openers synced to the cloud. Their violations were fiction, conveniently timed, predictably malicious. But this wasn't just about lies. It was about power, control. They needed a target, someone to silence, scare, use as an example. And they chose me because I left quietly once. They thought that meant I was weak. 3 years ago, I resigned from the HOA board after discovering a ledger entry that didn't make sense. $47, $920 labeled community beautification. But there was no new landscaping, no new lights, no receipts. I confronted Gloria. She claimed it was an accounting error. I pressed harder. She cried, said she needed help, said her husband's medical bills had swallowed her savings. I walked away. I didn't report it. I didn't expose her. Now she's repaid that silence with war. I filed a motion to appear in court pro se. I didn't list my full legal background, just the necessary details. My initials, my bar number. No warning, just the quiet sound of a blade being sharpened. The courthouse email confirmed my appearance date. It was sooner than expected, 6 days. That gave me just enough time to prepare. Not to survive, but to strike. I began calling former neighbors. Not all of them turned. Some were afraid. Some were just tired. But a few still remembered. Remembered when I helped draft contracts for free, mediated disputes, covered fees for elderly residents when they couldn't make payments. One by one, they came forward. A retired contractor, Henry Madsen, gave me invoices showing materials purchased by the HOA for repairs, materials that were never delivered. His signature was forged, a crime buried under community silence. I started building a witness list. Then, late at night, Dana sent me a message. They know you're fighting back. I overheard Jackson say they're going to bury you in motions, delay you, drain you, discredit you. I didn't flinch. I wanted them to try, because every desperate move they made was another nail in their own coffin. At 2 a.m., I submitted a formal counter-motion. Breach of fiduciary duty, financial misconduct, conspiracy to commit fraud. I didn't sign it as a resident. I signed it as an officer of the court. I slept 3 hours, woke before dawn, walked outside. The air felt different, lighter. The pressure was shifting. My house was still marked. The sign still sat crooked on the lawn. But the fear it once stirred was gone, because the case wasn't just about me anymore. It was about every family they'd extorted, every homeowner too afraid to speak, every lie they'd written into the bylaws. The hearing was set. I had 5 days to prepare, and they had 5 days left to pretend they were in control. The courthouse stood like a monument to forgotten promises. Cold stone, steel beams, and the echo of too many voices who never got justice. I walked through those glass doors with one file folder under my arm and a storm in my chest. Inside courtroom 3B, the HOA sat in matching suits. Gloria at the center, flanked by Jackson and their attorney, Langston. He smirked when he saw me, looked at the folder I carried like it was a joke. I didn't smile back. I didn't need to. The judge entered. Gavel struck. Silence wrapped the room. Langston started first. Loud, confident, artificial. He spoke like someone used to winning by intimidation. Your Honor, we represent the Homeowners Association of Ridgeview Estates. We are here to enforce compliance, not create conflict. He used words like nuisance, disruption, nonconformity. I let him. Every word dug his hole deeper. Then the judge turned to me. I stood, cleared my throat, and introduced myself. Not as a defendant, but as a licensed attorney representing myself. There was a shift, small but sharp. Gloria flinched. Langston stopped flipping pages. The judge raised an eyebrow. I didn't go on a tirade. I didn't make a scene. I laid out facts, timeline inconsistencies, fake violations, altered complaint timestamps, forged invoices. Every 2 minutes, I dropped something new. Langston objected twice. The judge overruled him twice. I submitted Henry's signed affidavit, showing false billing. Then came the photos, timestamp security footage disproving the noise disturbance claims. The court clerk leaned forward to look. The judge nodded slowly. Gloria whispered something to Jackson. He didn't respond. Then I pulled out the final sheet. A ledger copy I'd saved years ago. The missing $47,920. Unexplained. Disguised under beautification. No contract. No receipts. Just a number. One that vanished. The courtroom was still. You could hear the shift of fabric as Langston leaned back, suddenly less smug. I closed the folder. Your Honor, I said, this isn't about grass height or porch lights. It's about power, misuse of funds, and targeting of individuals who question authority. Silence again. Langston stuttered something about process. The judge cut him off. I've seen enough for today. Then he looked at me. I'm placing a temporary injunction on the HOA's fines and enforcement actions until further review. And I'm ordering a forensic audit of their financial records. Gloria's jaw tightened. Jackson stared at the table. Langston asked for a recess. Denied. Court adjourned. As I walked out, I passed Gloria. She didn't look up, just stared ahead like she couldn't hear anything anymore. The quiet broke her faster than any scream. Outside, Dana was waiting. She didn't speak, just nodded. In her hand, she held a folder of her own. More affidavit, she said. You're not the only one anymore. And that's when I knew. This wasn't just my fight anymore. It was everyone's. The day after the hearing, Ridgeview Estates didn't feel the same. There was no announcement, no parade, no emails. But something had shifted. I felt it in the silence. In the way garage doors stayed open longer. In the way neighbors paused at their mailboxes just long enough to nod. I wasn't invisible anymore. By noon, Dana's folder had turned into 6 more. Testimonies, receipts, emails, even a voice memo from a former board member who moved out last year. They doctored votes, he said. Rigged the last election. Paid vendors who never showed up. And Jackson, he threatened anyone who questioned Gloria. It was no longer suspicion. It was conspiracy. The forensic audit team arrived unannounced at the HOA office. I didn't need to be there. Their panic told the story better than words ever could. Gloria refused to answer questions. Jackson tried to leave with a flash drive in his bag. They stopped him in the parking lot. That evening, I walked past the community center. The bulletin board was empty. Flyers gone. Notices removed. The not above the law sign vanished from my lawn. But the damage was already done. That night, a knock on my door. Gloria. Alone. No clipboard. No lawyer. Her eyes were tired, lips tight, shoulders heavy. She didn't ask to come in. She just stood there in the porch light, as if the shadows could hide her shame. "I never meant for it to go this far," she said. I didn't answer. "I thought you'd leave quietly again." I didn't move. She swallowed hard. "We were drowning after Ken passed." I didn't know how to make up for what I took. I stared at her, not in anger, in something deeper, the space between pity and disbelief. "You weaponized the community," I said, "because you were scared." Tears welled up in her eyes. "But I wasn't there to rescue her this time." "I'm going to step down," she whispered. "Before the audit ends." I nodded once. As she turned to go, I asked one question. "How many others did you bury before me?" She didn't answer. 2 days later, the audit results were posted publicly by court order. Over $112,000 misappropriated. Vendor kickbacks. Inflated maintenance costs. Personal purchases. Gloria's name was all over the reports. The fallout came fast. Emergency board meeting. Open to residents. Packed house. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. Dana did. She stood up, held the reports in one hand and the bylaws in the other. "We were silenced," she said. "And we stayed quiet because we thought silence kept us safe. Not anymore." A vote was called. Gloria removed. Jackson banned from future positions. Langston under investigation by the bar for unethical conduct. And in that moment, Ridgeview finally exhaled. In the weeks that followed, fences were mended, literally and figuratively. The community newsletter returned. This time, written by residents, not dictated by fear. People started waving again. One afternoon, I found a thank you card in my mailbox. No name, just 4 words. "You reminded us how not all battles are fought in courtrooms. Some are fought on porches in whispers, in the silence of a neighborhood watching everything and saying nothing until someone finally stands up." This time, that someone was me. And I didn't just win a case. I took back a community. Gloria disappeared from Ridgeview like a shadow retreating before daylight. No farewell, no apology. Her house went dark. A for sale sign appeared the following week, but no one touched it. Not even the wind. Her name was scrubbed from the HOA site, her signature removed from every document. It was like she had never been here, except we all remembered. But karma doesn't ask permission. It doesn't knock gently. 3 weeks after the audit, a letter arrived. Not for me, addressed to the Ridgeview board, but someone slid a copy into my mailbox. It was from the state attorney's office. They were opening an investigation into HOA fraud and misuse of nonprofit funds. The audit triggered a deeper search. Gloria's history stretched further than Ridgeview. 2 other neighborhoods. Same patterns. Different names on the paperwork. But always the same tactics: fabricated violations, inflated contracts, silence through intimidation. This time, there would be no silence. Jackson was served a subpoena at his office. A real estate firm 2 towns over. Word spread fast. The firm scrubbed his profile within hours. He wasn't just banned from Ridgeview's board, he was blacklisted. Langston? Disbarred proceedings began within the month. His court filings, already under scrutiny, were discovered to include altered timestamps and ghostwritten affidavits. It was more than misconduct. It was calculated deceit. I didn't celebrate. This wasn't victory. It was justice catching up. I returned to my normal life, or something close to it. Mow my lawn. Helped a neighbor paint their fence. Sat on the porch with Dana one evening and watched the sun bleed into the rooftops. For the first time in months, there was no tension in my chest. But something unexpected happened. People started knocking, not with complaint, but questions. How we file a fair vote? Can you help us rewrite the bylaws? Would you ever consider running again? I declined, politely. I'm not here to lead anymore, I said. I'm here to make sure no one gets buried. Still, I helped where I could. Quietly, I rewrote the conflict resolution policy to protect homeowners from retaliation. Drafted a code of transparency. Volunteered to mediate disputes, not with authority, but with fairness. One morning, I saw a father teaching his daughter to ride a bike on the sidewalk where a no-play zone sign used to hang. No one stopped them. No one reported it. They just cheered when she stayed up for 5 seconds. That's when I knew Ridgeview wasn't just recovering. It was healing. Then came the letter. Certified envelope. No return address. Inside a single sheet. I watched everything. You don't know me, but you reminded me why I went into law before I gave up. I'm applying to reinstate my license. Thank you. No name. No signature. Just another ripple from the storm we survived. Ridgeview was no longer a place of quiet fear. It was becoming what it was meant to be all along. A community. Spring came earlier than expected. Ridgeview felt warmer, lighter, not just in weather, but in the way people moved. Lawn chairs reappeared. Kids biked without parents nervously checking windows. For the first time in years, the neighborhood felt like home, not a battleground. I was planting new hedges when Mrs. Alvarez approached me. She had always kept to herself, lived alone, and rarely made eye contact. But now she held a Tupperware of lemon bars and something soft in her eyes. "You saved us," she said. "We just didn't know how to say it. I didn't need thanks. I didn't need lemon bars." But I accepted both because sometimes healing looks like small gestures passed across fences that once divided us. The board held its first transparent election in years. No closed doors. No forged ballots. Residents showed up in person, shook hands, asked real questions. Dana was nominated. She hesitated at first, but the applause silenced her doubt. She won unanimously. Afterward, she found me near the edge of the park where the HOA once banned gatherings. "You started this," she said. No, I told her. I just refused to stay quiet. But she wasn't wrong. The fight had started with a file folder and a name they didn't expect to see on a legal document. They tried to bury me in silence, in rules twisted into weapons, in fear disguised as order. And it didn't work. The ripple effect kept growing. 2 counties over, another HOA scandal broke. The lead attorney on the case called me personally, said she used Ridgeview's court filings as precedent. That one win sparked another. Like falling dominoes, except every fall stood something else upright. And then something happened that caught me completely off guard. A package arrived with no return label. Inside, a framed newspaper clipping. The headline read, "Attorney exposes widespread HOA corruption, one neighborhood at a time." There was a yellow sticky note attached. Just 5 words. "Keep making noise. We see you." I sat on my shelf, next to my law books I hadn't touched in years. That night, I walked past Gloria's old house. The lights were back on. A young couple stood outside, painting the shutters sky blue. They waved. I waved back. There was no plaque, no banner, no speech to mark what had happened here. Just a quiet understanding that power no longer lived in fear, but in truth, in neighbors looking out for each other. And maybe that's the best kind of ending. No grand applause. Just the quiet rhythm of life restored. But make no mistake, if they come for my people again. If someone tries to twist the law to silence the very people it's meant to protect, they'll find out too late. I never stopped being their lead attorney. And this time, the whole neighborhood knows it. Like, share, subscribe, because truth spreads when we give it a voice.